Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Rustabout Collector here, and today we are taking a look at not one, not two, but three vintage collection 3 3/4 inch Stormtrooper action figures. This new mold is quite possibly the best Stormtrooper mold we will ever see in the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars line. Now originally I was going to do a separate video for each of these three figures, but as I got them in the mail, I realized that they all are on the exact same mold. So to save you all time as far as, articulation and all that stuff that's going to be the same between these three, I figured I would lump these all into one video, take a look at them individually, but just really go over the articulation and the improvements from the previous Stormtrooper mold on one figure. That being said, if you're interested in just one of these figures in particular, I'll have time codes below so you can jump ahead to that if you feel so inclined. And while you're down there, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment as to which of these three is your favorite, and if you like this content, I would appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button. We're going to start things off with the Imperial Stormtrooper Navarro Cantina Deluxe Edition. I gotta say, I'm definitely most excited for the E-Web. This is probably the first time we've gotten one in scale in the 3 3/4 inch line. We did get previous ones, but they were always weirdly scaled and just, it was kind of funky. This one looks absolutely awesome. I love that we're getting that little canister there as well. I'm assuming Tabana gas canister that's like fueling this, which is really sweet. The packaging is standard for the deluxe editions. It's this small cardboard box. You have this really nice photo on the front. On the back, there's what you're getting there. There is the Stormtrooper and everything. Legally is, it's a nice package. There's nothing really crazy here. I can see this being kind of not very cool for on-the-card collectors. Just my personal opinion. I'd rather see what the actual figure is. But overall, it does look nice, and if I saw this on a peg, I would definitely be interested in picking one up. But my interest is more on what is inside this box, so let's take a look at it. So all out of the package, this little setup is really, really awesome. I love that we're getting another Stormtrooper figure. I mean, you can never have too many of those. But the E-Web is also really, really awesome. As you can see, it goes together pretty simply. Everything snaps together. If you get confused at any point, there is this helpful little instruction manual, and you can go over that if you need to figure out where things go. The only confusing piece for me was really this like carry handle piece that gets woven through the legs. Now, since there's really only two things to talk about here, the accessory, the E-Web, and the Stormtrooper, we'll take a look at the E-Web first. There are no paint apps on this thing. It is all just cast in a solid black plastic. You do, however, get this little separate piece here. I love the blast effect. It looks really nice. I suppose this probably has some paint here to kind of gradiate from the translucent orange into this bright red color. Looks really sweet though once you add this on to the E-Web. This could work for displays, but this could also have some potential with toy photography, especially if you backlit it and hit some light through the transparent pieces. That could look really, really cool. The E-Web does articulate up and down as well as pivot side to side on that little hinge. It could also be detached from the base, and with a little bit of tricky posing, you could definitely have this hip fired like it is in Mandalorian Season 1. So that's kind of cool. It does have some options there. This doesn't have to be exclusively used by the Stormtroopers. The hose is a softer rubber material, so that is good for just, moving this around, having it in different arrangements. You can see there it's, very flexible. Sometimes if you get it kind of twisted in a knot, it may want to lift up some of the legs of the E-Web. Like, I can try and replicate that here. And of course, it's not really going to do it, but it can make some of the balancing a little tricky if there's just some tension on it. This is a very lightweight piece of plastic, but overall it's definitely functional, and I really like the detail packed into this like ammo crate type thing. Again, somebody down in the comments with a little bit more lore knowledge could tell me what this is, but the only thing that I feel this is missing is just a few paint apps here and there, maybe a dry brushing. I would have loved if this heatsink area was painted silver maybe, or some paint apps to really bring out the sculpt work here. It just feels very plain, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just needs a little bit extra, I feel like, especially since we're just getting this and the Stormtrooper figure. We're not getting any other accessories, and there's really not a whole lot of paint apps on the Stormtrooper. He's rather plain, actually. So for this to be a deluxe figure, I really do feel like there needs to be some paint apps there. Now, this Stormtrooper is mostly just a reuse of what we've seen before in the Rogue One mold, with one crucial difference, and that being from the knees down, it is a brand new mold, and it's meant to be styled more after the New Hope style armor, and this is the Rogue One style armor where those shins kind of flare out a little bit at the bottom. I know it's a very subtle difference, and unless you're doing, a suit of armor for the 501st Legion, you probably don't really care that much about the subtle differences between A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, all the different times the Stormtrooper designs changed. But this brings with it one very, very cool little addition. This original Stormtrooper mold simply had a hinge and swivel at the ankle. You could point to there and stuff, but that was really it. With this new mold, what we're getting here is actually a hinge and rocker. This is the first time we're seeing a foot pivot with the 3 3/4 inch Stormtrooper, and it's really awesome. It's going to allow for some much more dynamic posing as well as just better stability. The feet can now be level with the ground, whereas trying to get the old Rogue One figure into that same pose, you can see there's not a lot of options. The feet just don't want to lay flat to the ground. They're going to be kind of off-centered. They don't have as much contact with the ground, making them a lot less stable, and while you can still pose this figure up in some nice poses, it just is not as nice as having those ankle pivots. In terms of other articulation though, it is the same, so double ball joint at the head with some side to side, forward, back, outwards at the shoulders, hinge and swivel, so all the way around there, elbows into 90 degrees, hinge and swivel wrist all the way around. You get the in and out on the left hand and the up and down on the right hand. Ball jointed torso with a really good range of motion. Again, I do love this figure as it stands. If you have the Rogue One mold, you have an excellent, excellent figure. With this new one though, it's just that little extra spice to make it really, really good. Unfortunately though, they did not upgrade the hips, so these are still hinge and swivel. So you got to kind of get that hinge in the right position. Kick it forward, pivot the thigh outward, and then pivot the leg down. It's still very functional, but I do think that the ball joint just needs to be the standard across the board for vintage collection. It still does allow for some really nice outwards, as well as kicking it forward. It's just dependent on adjusting that hinge in there. Of course, you get the single jointed knees, allowing you to bend into 90, and you can swivel that all the way around if you want to give your Stormtroopers a little bit of Stranger Things treatment. And again, we have the upgraded ankles, so you can point them to there, and rock them side to side. It's a really nice quality of life upgrade. Again, this is a solid mold. The hips do need updated, but everything else was pretty good as it is. But just adding that one little feature, the one little ankle pivot there, makes a world of difference when it comes to posing both on a shelf and in toy photography. Now, I would like to point out one other difference, and that is just that these two have an almost imperceptibly different shade of white. Now, I have heard the Rogue One mold does yellow, so mine might just be yellowing with age. However, this one is just slightly more eggshell colored, and this is a much more vibrant, pure white color. So it might be a difference in plastic, or it could be that my figure is just starting to yellow. It may not even be perceptible on camera, but I just noticed it here in the studio, so I thought it was worth pointing out. But if you have these guys on a shelf together, I don't think you would really notice that. Hopefully Hasbro has fixed any of the yellowing problems that were present with this mold and have, updated the plastic type with this new one. So altogether, this is a nice pack. I love the E-Web and the blast effect. However, I don't think it's a good deluxe pack. I don't feel like I'm getting a deluxe price here. I'm not sure if it's the lack of paint apps or maybe I just needed a couple blasters for the Stormtrooper. I'm not totally sure, but it doesn't feel fully deluxe to me. But that's kind of been the running theme with a lot of the deluxe things from Hasbro, so I guess I just gotta kind of take it as they come. But if you're really in need of an E-Web turret and you don't mind maybe painting it up a little bit, giving it a dry brush, this is a great option. I do hope that they release a single carded version of this Stormtrooper though, because this is the truest form of an army builder. The other two we're looking at aren't quite as army buildable, but this one needs to be single carded so people can order full cases of them, because it is a Stormtrooper. You need, a couple at least. Next up, let's take a look at the Heavy Assault Stormtrooper from Jedi Fallen Order. In a sense, this does fulfill the role of a single-carded Stormtrooper, like I just mentioned, but it does have some additional accessories, and it doesn't have like a E11 that would make it a true plain Stormtrooper. You do have some really cool in-game card art here with the Z6 blasting away. This is a very reminiscent frame from like Heavy from the Clone Wars. I dig that a lot. Looks really cool. I do have to mention though, it's kind of odd that we've gotten so many Jedi Fallen Order characters in the 3 3/4 inch line, yet we still have not gotten a Cal Kestis, a Seventh Sister, literally any of the main characters. We've gotten plenty of the troopers, but none of the main characters, and I really think that needs to change. I know we're getting some Jedi Survivor characters, but I really want to see some Jedi Fallen Order main characters in the 3 3/4 inch line. What's interesting here on the back is that we don't have a full case lineup like we normally would. We just have the Stormtrooper Commander and the Heavy Assault Stormtrooper. I'm guessing that's because it's a Gaming Greats figure, but it is still numbered within the standard Vintage Collection numbering range. The Black Series Gaming Greats figures are not numbered within their lineup, so it's interesting that they went ahead and did that with these. But as usual, let's break this open and take a look at the figure. And there we have it, the Heavy Stormtrooper blasting away at Cal Kestis, probably about to be thrown off a cliff, honestly. Again, it's the same mold of Stormtrooper, but this time with a Z6 rotary and the little pauldron there. We also get this shield element that can go over top of the Z6 rotary. It does make him a little bit front heavy, but that's just where you kind of got to get creative with some of the posing, trying to shift that center of gravity back a little bit. And you also get this blast effect. This is the same blast effect as with the E-Web, but this time with no paint app up here in the front. It is all just translucent orange. That can be slotted into the front of the muzzle just like so. And just like that, you have a really awesome figure blasting away at Cal Kestis. Now, the only thing missing, of course, is a Cal Kestis figure to have in front of this trooper. So that is, again, kind of my gripe with the entirety of Fallen Order figures. We don't have the main characters. However, this does give me hope that we may see them sometime in the future, so fingers crossed on that regard. And of course, you can use the blast effect without that front shield. Either way, it's really cool. I'm glad that they're implementing these more in the 3 3/4 inch line, so hopefully future weapons have areas you can attach that to as well. And overall, it's just kind of cool to have a Stormtrooper with a really big minigun. It's not something we ever got to see in the movies, but it is cool to see it represented in video games, and honestly, this could also work as a Battlefront 2 heavy. Now, this Z6 is entirely a new mold, which is awesome to see. It has some dry brushing here, as well as some kind of brass-toned paint apps there in the back. I could see this being reused in some other Vintage Collection figures, like maybe a Battlefront 2 Clone Trooper heavy. That would be awesome to see with the new mold coming down the line. But yeah, it's just great to get this in a realistic style. We did get similar Z6s in the Clone Wars line, but never in realistic style, and never really in scale, because a lot of them had a spring-loaded play feature. Now, the one drawback to this is that, like many of the weapons Hasbro has done, it's in a very soft plastic, so I had a lot of trouble with the figure actually holding it. It just would not want to stay in their hand, and it would always kind of bend the wrong way when you were trying to get it into their hands. For me, this has been kind of an ongoing issue with Hasbro and some other brands as well, but I just wish that they would switch to a more rigid plastic when designing these so that we wouldn't have this issue. Now, it is also worth mentioning that this works really well with the older 3 3/4 inch figures as well. In fact, I kind of feel like this guy holds it better than the Stormtrooper. So it's pretty sweet that this has functional use across many different figures. If you got multiple of these, you could always kit out some other clone troopers with this, and kit out the Stormtroopers with some E11s. I know for me personally, putting this weapon with a clone trooper was my immediate thought when I saw this announced. And yeah, seeing it here in person really, really is awesome. I think this is a good option if you maybe just want another Stormtrooper in your ranks. You could always pop the head off of this one, remove the pauldron, and now you just have another Stormtrooper, and you have a cool weapon to give to your clone troopers. Now, I suppose the pauldron also would count as an accessory. It is cast in that soft black plastic, so you can definitely just hinge things around it. Now on to the final figure, and the one that I am most excited for. We have the Stormtrooper Commander. This figure's design has always just been so cool to me. I love the blue markings. It's very 501st reminiscent. We have this really cool artwork here of the Commander on Fallujah. I don't know if they ever were there in the game. They probably were. I haven't played it in ages, so, don't come to me for accurate lore there. But this looks awesome. But I also love the blue backing behind the figure. It just really makes a complete, uniform design going on here. The blue accenting the blue on the armor. It looks really cool, and this would be a great option for, carded collectors. This is a very well put together and designed card. Once again, on the back, nothing really exciting here, just a bunch of legalese and the figures we're looking at in this video. And once again, it's time to open up this figure and take a look at it. Now I gotta say, seeing this out of the packaging now, this one is definitely my favorite of the three we've looked at in this video so far, and it's kind of obvious why. It has these blue markings all over, the paint apps look really crisp here, and it's also weathered really nicely with the chipping and just different little scratches and stuff going on all over. It would be interesting to see someone compare this to the 6-inch Black Series version and see if the paint apps are identical. I've always wondered if they're doing identical figures like this, if they would just, take the same paint apps and scale them down or scale them up, but either way, it looks really solid here. I don't feel like the weathering is overdone. It looks battle-worn, but not, absolutely crazy. You can still make out all the different markings. And it's also just really cool to see this design that I loved so much in my childhood come to life in what is now the best 3 3/4 inch Stormtrooper we have ever gotten. The Force Unleashed game is iconic, and a lot of the designs are really cool, but this one was just one that always spoke to me. I can remember drawing this exact design so many times in my sketchbooks. And while this isn't the first version we have gotten in 3 3/4 inch, there was a previous version you can see here. As you can see, the differences are night and day. This actually looks like, almost like Hot Toys level detail, but at 3 3/4 inch scale. And the old one, while good for its time, just doesn't have the same level of detail. And once again, this figure shares all the same articulation as the other ones. Same old mold with the newly improved ankles, and yeah, it's the best mold that we're ever going to get. This is the definitive Stormtrooper mold. We never need to get another one. They can just keep repainting this one 1,000 times over, and I will love it. Now for accessories, this figure comes with the Rogue One style E11. We've seen it before, nothing new here. It does have a little ejection port painted silver there. And we also get this longer blaster. I think this is like the DL21 or something like that. I can never remember all the names. The E11 is really iconic, the DC-15 is really iconic, but this one just escapes me. And something that's kind of interesting is that it doesn't have a scope like it normally does, so I think that this is actually IG-88's blaster that they've just repacked with his Stormtrooper and not the standard like Imperial one. So all in all, I am really impressed with this figure. It is definitely my favorite, just because it has such a nostalgic feel for me. I love the Stormtrooper Commanders from the Force Unleashed games. And once again, we're not really getting anything new here. The articulation is very much what we are familiar with, but that simple little addition of the new ankle joints is so important. It has kind of become the industry standard across most 3 3/4 inch figure lines right now. I think it should be, and I'm very happy for that. And because of that, it's nice to see Hasbro revisiting some of these really good older molds that kind of came out right before they made the transition to the ball-jointed hips and the ankle rockers. So again, it's nice. It's a nice quality of life upgrade, and one that I hope they do with some of the other molds that they've made. So altogether, these three make a very nice addition to any Imperial army, or even kind of the start to an Imperial army. This is a good time to get back into it, because for a while, the Rogue One Stormtrooper was kind of hard to get. They only really made it in the one wave, and then when it was gone, it was gone. So it's great to see this now revisited with these figures. It's also cool that we're kind of getting it from different franchises. We have The Mandalorian, we have Jedi Fallen Order, we have The Force Unleashed of all things. It's really cool to see these represented. It's great that they've upgraded the mold, so honestly, if you don't have a Stormtrooper in your collection yet, this is the perfect one to get. With army builders being kind of less common with 3 3/4 inch these days, it is nice to see this heavy of a saturation of a quality army builder in really the same month. Like these all came in around the same time, so that must have been when all these figures were shipping over from overseas. But it's great to see. You know, it was really exciting to see both of these came in from Entertainment Earth at the same time, and then while I had those in hand like a week later, this came in from Walmart, and it was just perfect timing to do a big, you know, combo video like this. If you want to pick any of these up, I will link them down in the description so you can check those out. If you like this video or found it helpful in any way, I'd appreciate it if you would leave a like, leave a comment, let me know which one of these is your favorite, and also if you like this kind of content in general and you want to see more of it in your feed, please consider hitting that subscribe button. But anyways, that is where we are wrapping this video up, so have a wonderful evening, noon, or night, depending on when you're watching this video, and as always, I will catch you all in the next video.